Hello, hello, hello. Well, hello, Michaela. I did not expect you to join us. Welcome, welcome. Um, Matter of fact, my first slide is all about you. Uh, Hi, everybody. I'm Annette. This is Old Hollywood with Annette. Uh, Hello, Sarah Painter. Uh, I'm wearing my tiara, which, as those of you who have been to my Old Hollywood streams before know, that if I find even the slightest royal connection, I get to wear the tiara. So, out of all of the research I do, I look for the royal connection more than anything because, I mean, it's not every day you get to wear a tiara. Thank you. Michaela says she loves my tiara. I do too. But let me tell you something that I've learned. There is a reason for the saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown. This sucker is heavy. All right, let's get a little housekeeping out of the way for those of you joining. Hello, Natalie. For those of you joining this as a live stream, welcome, welcome, welcome. For hello, Ronnie. For those of you who may be watching this as a video replay later, well, bummer for you. You could have been here live and participated in the chat. So, you may hear me occasionally talking to people in the chat, saying hello to people in the chat, answering questions, which I rarely get on my old Hollywood. Um, and if you don't know me and it's the first time you're watching my old Hollywood streams, this tiara means I found a royal connection. Yes, with Fred Astaire. So let's get this party started. I'm going to start with a fun slide. So you may have heard me say hello to Michaela in the chat. Michaela does the most amazing decor setups, be it for sports, be it for movies, the Oscars, whatever. And she always does one for my old Hollywood. She searches high and low for the decor and the food that can be represented. And this is what she set up for Fred Astaire today. It's gorgeous, Michaela. Bravo to you. And is everybody ready to get this old Hollywood started with Fred? Let's get going. This is from this first little bit that I'm going to speak on is actually from a speech during when Fred Astaire was celebrated at the Kennedy Center's Honors Legend. Fred Astaire brought dance to the medium of motion pictures in a way never before imagined. The experience of seeing him dance is so dazzling that the only sane response is profound gratitude to film for having brought it into existence. Isn't that lovely? It really kind of uh, sets this up. Well, hello, Chris. Christoph says, hello, Your Majesty. Christoph, if you didn't know, now you know that I only wear the tiara during the old Hollywood streams if I can find a royal connection. And nobody was more surprised than I was when I found one for Mr. Astaire here. Let's get going. Fred Astaire was born. Oh, bye, Michaela. Enjoy your match, your game. Uh, Fred Astaire was born Frederick Austerlitz in Omaha, Nebraska, on May 10th, 1899. Uh, he was born to Frederick Fritz, that's his dad right there, Austerlitz, who was born in Linz, Austria, and to Johanna, who went by Anne. Johanna Ann Austerlitz, who was born in the U.S. to German immigrants. Astaire's father, Fritz, arrived at Ellis Island. Why are you saying bye bye, Oh, my bad. I thought Ronnie Lynn was saying bye bye to Kristoff too, but I think she just said bye bye to Michaela and hi to Kristoff. Astaire's father, Fritz, arrived at Ellis Island, New York in 1893 at the age of 25. He was seeking work in a in the brewing trade, which led him to Omaha, Nebraska, where he was employed by the store's brewing company. Now, it's said that Astaire's mother dreamed of escaping Omaha by means of her children's talent. Astaire's Oh, well, hello, Richard Schroeder. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just getting started. Uh, Astaire's father was seeking work when he came to the United States in the brewing trade, and that led him to Omaha, Nebraska, where he was employed by the store's brewing company. And it said that Astaire's mother dreamed of escaping Omaha by means of her children's talent. Astaire's older sister, Adele, she's older than Fred by 4 years. She was a very talented and instinctive dancer and singer from very early childhood. Their mother decided to plan a brother and sister act, which was common and very popular in vaudeville at the time. And though young Fred refused dance lessons at first. This is what he said in an interview with Dick Cavett. He said, I didn't want to dance. I just wanted to make my mother happy. And eventually I fell in love with the art. Uh, he began imitating. He didn't want to be a dancer, but he began imitating his older sister's dance moves at the Chambers Dance Academy in Omaha. And he also studied uh, piano, accordion, clarinet. Later in life, he played the drums. Um, and another time on the Dick Cavett show, Cavett asked Fred if he thought as a young dancer. Let's go back to this slide. Uh, Asked Fred if he thought as a young kid studying dance, if if he had had the wrong teacher, would he have ended up a completely different Fred Astaire? To which Fred answered, I know I wouldn't have known the difference myself. I didn't know what I was doing. Uh, I was I didn't know what I was doing when I was doing it. When I first started, I just followed along. As I said in the book I wrote, I just went along for the ride when my sister went east because my father thought her talents were worth sending her to New York so she could get an opportunity. And in fact, when their father lost his job, the entire family moved to New York City to launch the show business careers of the children. Once there, they began formal training at the uh, oh my goodness, I cannot read my own notes. At the Alini Master School of Theater and Academy of Cultural Arts. Once there, Johanna, their mother, suggested changing Fred and Adele's last name to Astaire, which family folklore has it that that last name was attributed to an uncle surnamed Le Astaire. Johanna felt that the name Austerlitz would be negatively associated with the 1805 Austerlitz battle during the Napoleonic Wars, uh, where over 24,000 were killed or wounded. So, hence, Fred and Adele Astaire were born. The children were taught dance, speaking, and singing in preparation for developing their own act. Their first act together was called Juvenile Artists Presenting on Electric Musical Toe Dancing Novelty. That does not roll off the tongue easily. What a name. Uh, Fred wore a top hat in the first half and a lobster outfit in the second half. His daughter Ava said in an interview that he was often given a top hat to make him look taller, uh, which he was quite a bit. Well, he was 4 years younger, but he was quite a bit shorter than Adele. So the top hat came in and it worked. In November 1905, the comedic act debuted at a tryout theater in New Jersey, where a local paper wrote, "The Astaires are the greatest child act in vaudeville." As a result of their father's salesmanship, Fred and Adele landed a major, whoa, where are we going? Landed a major contract and played the Orpheum circuit in the Midwest and some southern cities in the U.S. Listen, the Orpheum circuit was a big deal for vaudeville. Okay, it was a chain of vaudeville and movie theaters, which was founded in 1886 and eventually became part of the RKO Corporation. However, soon Adele grew to be at least 3 inches taller than Fred, and even a top hat was difficult to make up the difference. The family decided to take a short 2 year break from show business to let time take its course and to avoid trouble from the Gurney Society, which was lobbying heavily against child labor laws. Well, no, it was lobbying for child labor laws. Um, the career of the Astaire siblings resumed with mixed fortunes, but with increasing skill and polish as they began to incorporate tap dancing into their act. They also learned the tango, the waltz, and other ballroom dances. By age 14, Astaire had assumed the musical responsibilities for their act. Astaire had been searching for new music and dance ideas when he first met George Gershwin in 1916. Listen, Gershwin was a big deal. Oh, hello, Martin. Welcome. Welcome to the show. Uh, so the Gershwins was a big deal. So making an acquaintance with the Gershwin, uh, with George Gershwin, was really pivotal for them at this juncture in their career. Gershwin, he was an American composer and pianist whose compositions spanned jazz, popular, and classical music. And when they met, Gershwin was working as a song plugger, which is a song demonstrator or individual who promotes music uh, to musicians and record labels and other customers. The chance meeting would affect the careers of both artists profoundly. Astaire was always on the lookout for new steps on the circuit and was starting to demonstrate his quest for novelty and perfection. Astaire was a perfectionist. He really obsessed over getting every single thing right because he did not feel like he was a true partner with his sister. He felt that Adele really had held all the talent and he was just there to support her and make her dancing shine. He told Dick Cavett in another interview, he said, I don't like to see myself dance. I don't like to go back and watch my movies because I always think there was something I could have done better. And that really, well, he carried that thought and kind of heavy on his heart. Uh, Fred was on Dick Cavett's show quite a bit. In 1917 to 1933, the Astaires broke into Broadway. Uh, with Over the Top, a patriotic revue that they performed for U.S. and Allied troops at this time as well. They followed up with several more shows on their own. Oops, we're not quite there yet. Adele contributed intuitive talent, whereas Fred's perfectionism provided support as he took care of the planning behind the choreography and the logistics of the shows. That's a lot for a kid. He was only 18 and he was doing all of that behind the scenes, right? He considered his own skills shadowed by his sister's talent, so he focused on boosting her performance. By the late 1920s, however, uh, he would begin to develop a dancing style of his own, gaining a greater psychological independence from Adele. During the 1920s, Fred and Adele appeared on Broadway and the London stage, winning popular acclaim with the theater crowd on both sides of the Atlantic. And let me see here, they appeared in The Bunch and Judy, Lady Be Good, Funny Face, and The Bandwagon. Astaire's tap dancing was recognized by then as among the best. In 1930, Robert Benchley, who wrote articles and essays for Vanity Fair and the New Yorker, among others, wrote, "I don't think that I will plunge the nation into war by stating that Fred is the greatest tap dancer in the world." After the close of Funny Face, the Astaires went to Hollywood for Paramount Pictures. They were going to do a screen test for Paramount, but the pair were unhappy with the results. And although they were close to signing a deal to make the movie adaptation of Funny Face, the project was eventually abandoned. Uh, Now, we all know that Fred would eventually star in the motion picture Funny Face opposite of Audrey Hepburn in 1957. The pair split in 1932 when Adele married her first husband, Lord Charles Cavendish, the second son of Victor Cavendish, ninth Duke of Devonshire. This was where I first got an idea that that was close enough for this tiara. I was like, that's pretty close. A lord isn't part of royalty. A lord is part of the aristocracy that makes up the social circle of royals. But his dad was a duke. That is a royal title. So close enough for me. Bring the tiara on. Uh, this marriage lasted only 12 years, as Cavendish died in 1944 at the age of 38 of alcoholism. Uh, I don't know what to think about that as I'm sitting here with a pineapple mimosa. Oh, yes, yes, Christoph, on the beach. Hello, Walpuri, how are you? Welcome. The end of the partnership was traumatic for Astaire, but it stimulated him into expanding his range. He was no longer under, uh, his sister's shadow, if you will. He no longer uh, felt less than. He no longer was in his head whenever he was performing with his sister. He was now free to go and do what he wanted to do and stand on his own 2 feet. Fred went on to achieve success on his own, both on Broadway and in London, with The Gay Divorce, later made into the movie The Gay Divorcee. According to Hollywood folklore, a screen test report on Astaire for RKO radio pictures. Sarah, yes, Sarah Painter, she did. Fred's sister Adele married Lord Cavendish, and that's what broke up the act. So, according to Hollywood folklore, there was a screen test report on Astaire for RKO radio pictures, which the screen test and the report have been lost, but it's reported to have read can't sing, can't act, balding, can dance a little. That's what somebody said about Fred Astaire, can dance a little. Astaire later clarified, insisting the report had read can't act, slightly bald, also dances, which sounds better. Uh, Safe to say that the test was, at the very least, very disappointing. But David Selznick, who signed Astaire to RKO and commissioned the test, stated in a memo, I'm uncertain about the man, but I feel in spite of his enormous ears and bad chin line that his charm is so tremendous that it comes through even on this wretched test. Christoph says that describes me. Christoph, I know you. I, that is not how I would describe you at all, my friend. Dear sir, that does not describe you at all. None of this affected RKO's plans for Astaire. They lent him out for a few days to MGM in 1933 in the very successful musical film Dancing Lady, where he appeared as himself dancing with Joan Crawford. This really surprised me. I had no idea that Joan Crawford had ever danced in a film or had even been in a musical. That is not uh, what what comes up in my mind when I think Joan Crawford. So this was really, really surprising. Uh, and Fred appeared as himself dancing with her. He then went on to his first pairing with Ginger Rogers in Flying Down to Rio. Now, having already been linked to his sister Adele on the stage, Astaire was very reluctant to become part of another dance team. He wrote his agent, I don't mind making another picture with her, but as for the team idea, it's out. I've managed to live down one partnership, and I don't want to be bothered with any more. However, even Fred couldn't help but notice the public appeal of the Astaires and Rogers pairing. Uh, Fred was unhappy with the partnership, and I don't know that Ginger Rogers was any more thrilled about it. She very famously quit because she felt that Fred shouldn't be more popular or famous than she was. And so she did publicly quit. I do everything that Fred does. I just do it backwards in heels. So that tells me there was a little tension there. Um, but as I said, Fred he didn't want the partnership either, but he couldn't deny that the public wanted it. And Pendro Berman, a successful producer, finally persuaded Fred to go along with the partnership by giving him 10% of the Astaire Rogers profits. According to Berman, after Astaire began receiving payments, there were no further objections. You put your money where your mouth is, right? Astaire and Rogers went on to make 9 films together at RKO. They, of course, did Flying Down to Rio in 1933, The Gay Divorcee in 1934, Roberta in 1935, Top Hat in 1935, Follow the Fleet in 1936, Swing Time in 1936, Shall We Dance in 1937. This movie was remade quite a little bit ago with Richard Gere and Jennifer Lopez. And Carefree in 1938. And finally, The Story of Vernon and Irene in 1939. Six of the nine Astaire Rogers musicals became the biggest money makers for RKO, and all of the films brought a certain prestige and artistry that was very coveted by the studios at the time. Their partnership elevated them both to stardom, and it's reported that Katharine Hepburn once said, "He gives her class, she gives him sex." Now, I don't think that that literally means that Ginger Rogers was giving Fred sex. I think good old Kate, who is going to be our next old Hollywood Katharine Hepburn is, I think she might have left a really pivotal word off of that sentence. Uh, you know, he gives her class, she gives him sex appeal. How about that? I like that better. And I'd like to think that that's what Kate was trying to say. Despite uh, their success, Astaire was unwilling to have the entirety of his career tied exclusively to any partnership. He negotiated with RKO to strike out on his own in 1937 with Damsel in Distress. The film was not a success. His next two films, with Rogers, Carefree, and The Story of Vernon and Irene Castle, resulted in Astaire leaving RKO after being labeled box office poison. Can you imagine anybody saying that Fred Astaire was box office poison? Blows my mind. Astaire left RKO in 1939 and was now free to work and freelance and pursue new film opportunities. His first post-Ginger dance partner was Eleanor Powell, who was considered the most exceptional female tap dancer of her generation, and they starred in Broadway Melody of 1940. He was then hired to star in the musical comedy Second Chorus that had Burgess Meredith in it, almost unrecognizable. And Second Chorus is not considered one of Fred's better movies. I watched it, and I can see why. It was a good movie, don't get me wrong. But it just wasn't, when you compare it to the other films that Fred Astaire has done, it just really wasn't quite up to par, however delightful that it was. Uh, and the film, I'm not the only one saying it, the film was only mildly successful. Um, Also, at this time, there was the arrival of broadcast television that was starting to come onto the scene. So that may have impacted um, the movie theater sales in general. Harry Cohn, the president of Columbia Pictures, hired Fred for two movies with Rita Hayworth. You'll Never Get Rich in 1941, and You Were Never Lovelier in 1942. He then went on to star alongside Bing Crosby in the enormously successful Holiday Inn in 1942 and returned to RKO to film The Sky is the Limit in 1943. His next two films were Ziegfeld Follies. Hold on, I have a dog trying to get up here. Ooh, oh my God, Jemima. Yes. And Yolanda and the Thief, both directed by Vincent Minnelli. Let me tell you something. And sorry about that. Let me tell you something that amazes me doing these old Hollywood streams is when I do the research. We started with Judy Garland, who of course married Minnelli, um, and and she was great friends with Mickey Rooney. We know that. And Mickey Rooney is the one that narrates That's Entertainment that Fred is in. He's in both parts. Uh, Judy also went to school on the lot with Elizabeth Taylor, who was our second old Hollywood. Elizabeth Taylor starred in a movie with James Dean, right? Who was our next. Yeah, James. No, we did Audrey. Audrey Hepburn starred with Fred, of course, in Funny Face. Elizabeth was with James Dean. I don't know how we tie it all together with Grace Kelly, but hello, she brought on the big gun Tiara, and now we're at Fred Astaire, who has connections. It could be because all of these people were stars at around the same time in Hollywood, but I love it when I find the connections like that. I always think it's so cool. According to MGM, the studio lost money on both of these films. And always insecure and believing his career was beginning to falter, Fred shocked everybody by announcing his retirement during the filming of Blue Skies with Bing Crosby. Although he was reported to be unhappy with the role where he lost the girl to Crosby, Astaire carefully planned putting on the Ritz, an innovative song and dance routine indelibly associated with him as his farewell. Once retired, he concentrated on his horse racing interests. He owned some racehorses. He was very, very, very uh, into that hobby, if that's what you want to call it. Spending when he wasn't, filming and spending time with his family, you could find him at the track. His and then he also started the Fred Astaire Dance Studio franchise, which he subsequently sold in 1966. His retirement was short-lived. He returned to the big screen to replace an injured Gene Kelly in Easter Parade. Another tie to our old Hollywood streams. He co-starred with Judy Garland, and who doesn't love that movie, in 1948. He followed up with a final, there's Judy and Fred in Easter Parade. I love that picture. He followed up with a final reunion with Ginger Rogers in 1948 in the Barclays of Broadway. In 1950, he starred in two musicals, Three Little Words with Vera Ellen. Vera Ellen also was in Holiday Inn, and she was also one of the sisters in White Christmas. Red Skeleton was in this movie too. And this was made by MGM. And then he did Let's Dance with Betty Hutton for Paramount. And here comes our next royal connection. Boy, this tiara just keeps getting validated. It just gets better and better. This movie. This movie. If you haven't seen this movie, you have to see this movie. some of the most just breathtaking dancing. The scene where he's in the gym because they're on a cruise ship. Listen, this film was loosely based off of Fred and Adele. Okay, very loosely based. Um, but they're on a ship, big old liner, going across the Atlantic to get to London for the royal wedding, and there's a gymnasium on board in the ship, and the scene where Fred is. Oh, and there was my other connection. The beginning of royal wedding. There he is, wearing a crown. I'm with you. I'm with you, Fred. I'm with you. Uh oh. The scene where he's in the gym dancing with like the coat rack, just you can't stop looking at it. Um, I, I, well, I can't argue that this was one of his best films because he did so many wonderful, wonderful things during his career. But I can tell you this is my very, very favorite. Um, this scene where he dances up the wall and across the ceiling, this was completely just engineering beyond its time. Okay, this was done, as you can see right here. I googled this. Astaire simply danced right side up while the room spun around him. Can you imagine? To pull off this iconic sequence for the song, "You're All the World to Me," the crew utilized the following techniques: a rotating rig. The entire hotel room was constructed on a massive 360-degree cylindrical spindle. Motors allowed the whole set to revolve. And then they fixed a camera. The camera and the cameramen were securely strapped onto the rotating rig alongside a stair. Because the camera moved in sync with the room, the camera's frame of reference never changed, creating the optical illusion that the room was stationary and Astaire was walking on the walls. This dance number, iconic, iconic. And listen, Fred insisted that his dance scenes be filmed in one shot. He did not go for chopping up the dance or doing it a little bit here to get this little part of the dance and then moving over here. No, he insisted that every single dance scene that he did on film was shot in from beginning to end, the entire dance. Um, just amazing. I beg of you to see this movie and not be as amazed as I was because it is amazing. And I have to tell you, of course, while I'm doing research and watching these movies, I can see the TV, my living room, and my kitchen. And I'm in the kitchen making lunch and I'm watching the movie. And I start doing a little dance. I can't dance. Well, vodka tells me I can dance, but I can't dance. And I'm dancing in my kitchen. Just magical. Just magical. So he did the royal wedding in 1951, and then he went on to the Belle of New York. This movie is so delightful. It really kind of uh, reminded me of like an early Arthur. Does anyone remember Arthur with Dudley Moore? And the character, Fred's character in The Belle of New York, really reminded me of that. This is another great movie. Then Fred went on to the bandwagon in 1953. Soon after this, along with most of the other remaining stars of MGM, uh, they were dismissed by the studio due to the advent of television. In 1954, Fred was ready to start work on a new musical, Daddy Longlegs, for 20th Century Fox, when his wife Phyllis became ill and died of cancer. Astaire was devastated. He was so desolate that he wanted to shut down the picture, and he offered to pay all of the production costs for anything that had been done up until that point. Uh, and so he said, "Look, I can't do it. I'm too. I'm shattered. I just can't do it. I will pay for everything out of my own pocket." But Johnny Mercer, the film's composer and Fox studio execs, convinced him that continuing to work would be the best thing for him. Daddy Longlegs was only moderately successful at the box office, but Fred went ahead with it. His next film for Paramount teamed him with Audrey Hepburn in Funny Face, uh, and despite good reviews, the movie failed to recover its production costs. So it was successful in terms of the box office sales, but the studio didn't recoup all of their costs for production or salaries or anything. Um, his next film, Silk Stockings, with Sid Charisse, also lost money at the box office. And Astaire announced that he was retiring from dancing in films. His legacy at this point was 30 musical films in 25 years. Astaire, he didn't retire from dancing altogether. He made a series of four highly rated, Emmy Award winning musical specials for television in 1958, 1959, 1960, and 1968. Each of these featured Barry Chase, with whom Astaire enjoyed a renewed period of dance creativity. The first of these was 1958, An Evening with Fred. Oh, well, Prairie says she's never seen Royal Wedding, but it's available on YouTube. Oh, well, Prairie, you won't regret it. You can thank me later. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're going to love it. You're just going to love it. So, Fred did this An Evening with Fred Astaire on TV. It won 9 Emmy Awards, including Best Single Performance by an Actor and Most Outstanding Single Program of the Year. Now, choosing to give Fred an award for Best Single Performance by an Actor, this really became controversial because many believed his dancing in this special was not the type of acting for which the award was designed. At one point, Astaire offered to return the award, but the Television Academy refused to even consider it. In 19, oh, this is the movie Christoph was talking about. In 1954, Astaire played Julian Osborne, a non-dancing here, a non-dancing character in the nuclear war drama On the Beach. He was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor award, but lost it to Stephen Boyd in Ben-Hur. You kind of can't be mad at that because Ben-Hur is an incredible movie, and everybody in it did outstanding jobs. Oh, I did not know that. Richard said it was set in Melbourne, Australia. Thank you, Richard. Fabulous. Astaire appeared in non-dancing roles in three other films and several television series from 1957 to 1969. And oh, that's a call for more mimosa. Hold on, Fred. I'm coming. Astaire also wrote his own autobiography titled Step in Time, which he published in 1959. Astaire's last major musical film was Finian's Rainbow, directed by Francis Ford Coppola in 1968. For this role, Astaire shed his white tie and tails in the film to play an Irish rogue who believes that if he buries a crock of gold in the shadows of Fort Knox, uh, which is kind of a big deal. Fort Knox is a big deal here in the States. His character believed if he buried this crock of gold close enough to Fort Knox, the gold would multiply. Astaire continued to act in the 1970s. He played the father of Robert Wagner's character in It Takes a Thief. He appeared as the Baltimore Kid in the 1970 TV movie The Over the Hill Gang. In 1974, he danced with Jennifer Jones in The Towering Inferno and received his only Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. I thought this was a lot of fun right here. He voiced the mailman narrator S.D. Kluger in the 1970s animated TV specials Santa Claus is Coming to Town and The Easter Bunny is Coming to Town. Now, I have to tell you, as a kid, when these specials came on TV, oh my God, we were just riveted. We just were stuck to that spot in the floor in front of the TV. Not only did we only get to see these once a year, um, but it was cartoons at night. We didn't have that back then when I was a kid. You had cartoons on Saturday morning that got progressively worse as the morning, got later. And by noon, you just wanted to be out of the house playing with your friends and riding your bike. So these were exciting. These were as big of a deal as when they would broadcast on TV the Ten Commandments at Easter, or the Wizard of Oz and Willy Wonka. As usually, if I remember right, those are usually around Thanksgiving, and then we would have this. Santa Claus is coming to town, and look at it. Look at the character. He looks like Fred. But I have to say, I do not remember ever seeing this. The Easter Bunny is coming to town. I don't remember that at all. Does anybody remember that? Had anybody seen that? He also appeared in the first two That's Entertainment, which Mickey Rooney narrates. He was in part one and part two. They were documentaries in the mid 1970s. He made 3 albums in London: Attitude Dancing, They Can't Take These Away From Me, and a couple of song and dance men, the last being an album of duets with Bing Crosby. In 1976, Astaire played a supporting role as a dog owner in the cult movie The Amazing Dobermans, co-starring Barbara Eden. Does anybody remember Barbara Eden from I Dream of Jeannie? In 1977, he played Dr. Seamus Scully in the French film The Purple Taxi. In 1978, he co-starred with Helen Hayes in a well-received TV film, A Family upside down, and Astaire won an Emmy Award for his performance. He then went on and made a well-publicized appearance on the popular sci-fi TV series Battlestar Galactica. I forgot this show even existed. It drove me crazy when I was a kid. Oh no, ma'am, you don't. Don't start. They always want it to be their show. This is my show. You get your own show. You figure it out. Get your own YouTube channel. My show. Always. Every time. Every time. I gave them treats earlier to bribe them. Well, the treats got eaten and manners are long forgotten. Like this show. I forgot all about this show. My brother loved Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek, and I loathed them. So I probably pushed this out of my mind. Astaire had asked his agent to obtain this role for him on Battlestar Galactica because of his grandchildren's interest in the series. And the show's producers were delighted to create a role and an entire episode around him. The episode marked the final time he danced on screen, and he then went on to do the man in the Santa Claus suit, which I've never seen. And he then did, oh, Sarah, I get after them. Sarah says, tell them. Oh, I tell them a lot. And it goes inside one furry little ear and right out of the other. And it doesn't even slow down. It goes 100 miles per hour, in and out. Welcome to my life. They don't listen to me. I just work here. I'm just here to provide the treats. They're running it. They're running this whole thing. So his final film was in 1981, an adaptation of Peter Straub's novel Ghost Story, a horror film. It was also the last film for two of his most prominent castmates, Melvyn Douglas and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. Now I'm going to tell you something. This man, I think, was a saint. It is extremely difficult to find very much about his personal life. He didn't show up in gossip columns because he wasn't out and about. He really was a dancer who, just poured everything into dance and music and rehearsing and coming up with new steps, and his family. And that was pretty much it. So it's hard to find anything about him. He just didn't put himself out there publicly like that. And I'm glad, because I didn't want to find anything ugly about him, because I just have this feeling that he was just such a lovely man. And it seems like Hollywood agreed, and the rest of the world. So there isn't a lot out there about his personal life. Really, the most we know about his personal life for years, if you want to say it, was in dissecting his partnership with his sister. And still, that was all about dance, right? But there's no gossip about him. There's no scandal. He appears to have led a very quiet life off stage. In 1933, he married 25-year-old Phyllis Potter. She was a Boston-born New York socialite, the former wife of Eli Knott Potter. Fred's mother and sister objected to this. They were not crazy about this. And I would have to guess that was because in 1933, she was a divorcee with a child. Fred didn't pay any attention to what his sister and mother said, and he married her anyway. And they were married for 21 years. There they are with Phyllis's son, Peter, and their child, Fred Jr. Uh, and they were together for 21 years, very happily married from all accounts, until Phyllis died from lung cancer at the age of 46. In addition to Phyllis's son Peter from her previous marriage, the Astaires had two children, Fred Jr., you can see him there, born in 1936, and Ava, born in 1942. There, Fred is with Ava, escorting her to a ball, and his son appeared in with him in a movie called Midas Run. On June 24th, 1980, at the age of 81, Fred married a second time. Robin Smith, this is Robin, she was 45 years for Junior, and a jockey who rode for Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt, who she had also dated in the 70s. She even graced the cover of Sports Illustrated in July of 1972. Astaire's life has never been portrayed on film. Excuse me, ma'am. It's just the wind. I mean, really? Always in the middle of my show. Can you please hold on about another 10 minutes, maybe 15? And then they'll go to sleep once I'm not doing this anymore. You know that, right? I can't get a break. I can't get a break. So Astaire's life has never been portrayed on film. He always refused permission for such portrayals, saying, however much they offer me, and the offers come in all the time, I shall not sell. Astaire's will, which is private, but it reportedly included a clause requesting that no such portrayal ever take place. And his widow, Robin, um, she says, I don't care if this makes me look like a control freak or a bad guy, but I'm going to uphold my husband's wishes. Fred commented about the rumor of the clause, saying, it's there. It's there. The clause is there because I have no desire to have my life misinterpreted, which it could be. And Robin has been vigilant in protecting his wish. Intensely private, Astaire was rarely seen on the Hollywood social scene. He instead devoted his spare time to his family, we talked about this, and his hobbies, which included horse racing, playing the drums, songwriting, and golfing. He was very good friends with David Niven, Randolph Scott, Clark Gable, and Gregory Peck. And Niven, I adore David. I adore David Niven. I just love him. Niven described Fred as a pixie, timid, always warm-hearted, with a penchant for schoolboy jokes. Fred remained physically active well into his 80s. He even took up skateboarding in his late 70s. Are you kidding me? I, I'm only I'm only 58, and I'm scared of the stairs in my apartment that I'm going to break a hip. And he's out there skateboarding. You go, Fred. You go. You go, Fred. Wow. Uh, he did break his left wrist while skateboarding in his driveway at one point, but he didn't let that stop him. And he was awarded a life membership in the National Skateboarding Society. Wow. Was Astaire the fifth Beatle? No. Fred Astaire was a massive fan of the Beatles, and the love was reciprocated. In 1967, Astaire appears as one of the iconic figures on the Sgt. Pepper album cover. Can you see him back there? I circled him all the way in the back row. He's there. He was personally requested by the band, and he was overjoyed to be part of it. The Beatles' music really resonated with Fred. It resonated heavily with him. Uh, he praised them for their distinctive sound. Conversely, Paul McCartney stated that the Beatles' track "Here, There, and Everywhere" was inspired by the musicality of classic Hollywood stars like Astaire. In 1972, Astaire appeared cameo appearance in John Lennon and Yoko Ono's film Imagine. He made a brief, playful walk-on appearance alongside Lennon and George Harrison. So interesting, isn't that? Oh, time for the next set of slides. We gotta go all the way back. Okay, there we go. Astaire and Cary Grant were often called the best dressed actors in American movies. Fred's dedication to fashion became more astute during his time in London. He started to follow fashion more closely, aspiring to look as polished as members of British upper class. He often visited Savile Row and its tailoring studios. His favorite was Anderson and Shepherd, uh, which was well known to members of the royal family as well. And later in life, Harrison was known. Oh, Harrison. Why do I have George Harrison on my brain now? Later in life, Astaire was known to greatly admire the style of Prince Charles, now King Charles. And when Astaire found out that Charles dressed himself at Hawes and Curtis Studios, well, Astaire was there in no time at all. This is also really interesting. Astaire always used his own suits in the movies, and so they had to be tailored perfectly to allow for his wide range of dance moves. Astaire remained a male fashion icon even into his later years, eschewing his trademark top hat, white tie, and tails for a breezy, casual style of tailored sport jackets, colored shirts, and slacks, and his pants were usually held up by the distinctive use of an old silk scarf or tie in place of a belt. I remember that. Fred Astaire. Well, what can we say about Fred? Fred Astaire brought elegance to motion and joy to millions. He made the impossible look effortless. He showed the world that elegance and humility can walk hand in hand. Though his feet are still, the grace he gave to the world continues to dance through time. Fred Astaire died of pneumonia on June 22nd, 1987, at the age of 88. His body was buried at Oakwood Memorial Park Cemetery in Chatsworth, California. Rest in peace, Fred. We know you're still dancing wherever you are. Well, what a lovely man. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really enjoyed um, getting to know Fred. There were so many things that surprised me. Uh, I was always a big Beatles fan, especially Sergeant Pepper's. My brother and I, and some of our friends from the neighborhood, actually put on a Sergeant Pepper's play in our driveway for our parents. But I didn't know that Fred was on the cover of that album. And albums were kind of all we had back then. I was uh, so tickled to find out about the skateboarding. I loved that he found love later in life, and his wife Robin said, "I had we had 7 years of bliss," and she said it's really hard to watch someone you love fade away, but he went fairly quickly and he didn't suffer, and so she was always grateful for that. So rest in peace, Fred, and keep dancing. That's it. That's it for Fred. So again, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for giving me an hour of your time today to get to know Fred better. And I will see you next time for Katharine Hepburn. Listen, when I did the poll in the group on Facebook, right? Which actor, actress would you like to see in the next Old Hollywood? Katharine Hepburn and Fred Astaire were neck and neck, and Fred won by one vote. So I said, well, the tribe has spoken. Got to give the people what they want. And they obviously wanted Fred Astaire, and they also wanted Katharine Hepburn, good old Kate. So we'll see her next time, and I hope I see you then too. Uh, thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, your afternoon, your evening, wherever you are, and I will see you again somewhere on a stream soon. Bye bye. Thank you all.